So here's a momentum problem. Compare the momenta of objects A and B, and we're given their mass and their velocity. And hopefully you remember that mass and velocity is all you need to know in order to calculate momentum. So P equals mv. That's the equation for momentum, where momentum is the letter P, m is mass, and v is velocity. So we can see that object A, or hopefully you can see object A has more mass, and it has more velocity, and so the lazy student might look at this, compare the momentum of objects A and B, and write A has more. And while technically correct, that's not really the answer that I'm looking for. I want to know how much more. And I don't just want to know how much more, I want to know how many times greater is it? By what factor is A's momentum different from B's momentum? And there's an easy way to solve this, and there's a hard way to solve this. Or I should say there's a long way to solve it and a short way to solve it. So the way that I think most students, the method I think most students would use right off the bat is to just calculate them. The momentum of A is the mass of A times the velocity of A, and you can certainly do this if you have a lot of time on your hands. 100 kilograms is the mass of A, right? That's given. The velocity of A is 10 meters per second, also given. I multiply them, and I get 1,000, kilogram meters per second. So I won't rewrite that, but that's a kilogram meter per second. And then I could go over here. I can calculate the momentum of B, which is going to be the mass of B times the velocity of B. Both given, 50 kilograms multiplied by 5 meters per second is 250 kilogram meters per second. Hopefully you don't even need a calculator to do that. And at this point, some of you would leave your answer like this, but remember, that's not the question. The question wasn't calculate their momenta, it was compare them. So you could say, and I hope you don't, but you could say, your answer could be A has 1,000 minus 250, so you would say 750 kilogram meters per second more momentum than B. And you could give me that as your answer, and I would not be happy with that answer because I want to know how many times greater is it. So again, it's not a big deal. You go back to these numbers and you say, well, in order to get A's momentum, what number would I have to multiply B's momentum by? 250, which is B's momentum, times what number is going to give me 1,000. And you can probably just actually look at this and see that it's 4 times the momentum, but we can do it out here. Divide both sides by 250, and I get 4. So what does this 4 represent? Because here also I get a lot of strange answers. Some people would say, well, it's 4 kilogram meters per second greater. It isn't, right? It's 750 kilogram meters per second greater. What does this 4 represent? This 4 represents how many times greater it is. So what could you write? You could write A has 4 times B's momentum. And that is true. And that's what this is showing us. This is A's momentum. This is B's momentum. So A has, if A is 1,000 and B is 250, A has 4 times B's momentum. So that's the long way to do it. So there is an easier way to do this, a faster way certainly, and that's to use proportional reasoning. This is a mathematical relationship, so I know that whatever factor mass or velocity changes by, that is the product of that factor is how momentum changes. So let's look at B as our reference, and I'll show you that we can do this with A too, but let's look at B's momentum is the product of B's mass and B's velocity. I left spaces here on purpose because this is going to tell me, well, by what factor is A's mass and A's velocity different from B's? And then I'm going to see by what factor momentum changes. So let's look at this. A compared to B has twice the mass. B has 50 kilograms, A has 100 kilograms, it's twice the mass. Its velocity is also double. B has is going 5 meters per second, A is traveling at 10 meters per second, that's also twice the velocity. So I just multiply these. 2 times 2 is 4 times the momentum. And look, I didn't have to do any of this work, and I get the same answer. If I wanted to do this for compare B to A, I could do the same thing. I'm just going to get the answer is going to be the reciprocal. So I have the mass of A multiplied by the velocity of A. Well, compared to A, B's mass is 1/2. Compared to A, B's velocity is 1/2, and 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So I could write B has 1/4 A's momentum, and that would be fine. I can write A has twice, or 2 times, has 4 times, 4 times B's momentum, and that would be right.